So we're going based on the job description that you were given. I think it was a study abroad officer. And so the first question is, please describe one or two qualities that you would bring to this position.
Definitely. I think that something that's really important in international education is having empathy with the students you're working with, just kind of taking them where they are in that situation because studying abroad or coming into a country is just a total, it's a roller coaster for them. There's like a lot of emotions, and it's kind of your job to keep them ready and excited for that whole application process, even though there's like those pits and those peaks throughout it. So I think empathy is the first one. And second, just like responsibility. You're working with visas, you're working with consulates, you're working with the partners if it's an exchange agreement. I think just being able to like know your stuff pretty much and knowing like who goes with what and who's going where, and just paying attention to that detail is really important.
Mm-hmm. Great. What are your strongest leadership skills?
I would say number one, just being able to take that responsibility and being autonomous. I think that that's really important. Something that's really unique that I've worked through this year, especially, is in our office here at Canisius, our director is new. This is his second year. So that means that there's been a lot of responsibility put on us. And at first I was very nervous about that as a first year grad last year. But kind of just like stepping up to the plate and learning and being able to kind of like almost self-teach in a way in that situation. I think that's important, and being able to like want that knowledge and continue to grow. So I'd say that is definitely my leadership style. Also, just being able to take on more sometimes is important. I'd say that that also kind of tethers on the line of being my biggest weakness sometimes, but I think it works out in the end. Just always like wanting that more and always like wanting others to want that more. That's something that's really important here at Canisius. One of the Jesuit values is magis, and that's something just, wanting that more. And that's definitely in the culture here. And I would bring that to a position if I was in a leadership position.
Great. What approaches might your supervisors use while working with you that would bring out the best in you?
I would say just being very detailed in what they expect, but then letting me kind of navigate my way to get to that expectation. I think that everyone is different in how they work. I think that that's important to hold on to, especially in an advisement role, because that allows you to kind of work with each student individually and kind of bring what you have in common with them out in each student. So I think just allowing me to know what the end goal is, but then allowing me to have that wiggle room in between to kind of get there however I need to.
Hmm. Okay. What was the most useful criticism that you've ever received?
I think recently this happened actually. Because I like so much space, I tend to forget about that communication side. So this year I've had the opportunity to work at the University of Buffalo, which is a very, very large research university in comparison to Canisius, which is a very small private school. And here, everything just kind of naturally flows. You don't really need to go that extra step to communicate because everyone already knows what's going on because it's so small. Versus at the large research university, it's like I have to go out of my shell to inform X, Y, and Z of what I need to do. I wasn't used to that. So when I received that criticism of, like, I'm not really sure what you're working on. Like, I'm sure you're doing things, but I'm not seeing it, like that communication piece. So just getting used to, hey, today I was here for 10 hours. I worked on this, this, and this. I hope to do this next week. And kind of just letting others know that that's what's being accomplished versus feeling like if I'm just taking care of it myself, other people are automatically noticing just by the size. So I'd say that that was something that I've definitely worked on.
Great, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Please describe the ways in which you've demonstrated to students that you are accessible to them.
I think that there's two ways that I do that. Number one, just being accessible, just like having those office hours and just knowing that if they're going to come in between 9 and 11, I'm going to be at my desk, being there on time. Being able to just keep those appointments, being able to respond to emails quickly, especially with the sort of information that you're sharing in an international education office, you need to be able to keep on top of that. So just actually being accessible, number one. And number two, just being able to go above and beyond. Like that's the point of being a student affairs professional. If you just wanted a surface level job, that's not what you would be doing. You want to kind of dig deeper. So knowing that, you're worried about their personal life, what are you bringing with you when you go abroad? What are you willing to leave there? Like having those dialogues, those questions, like bringing it out in them I think is really important because it not only allows them to think about what they're about to do, but also, unfortunately, thinking about what's going to happen when they come back, even though that seems far away. It's going to happen before they know it. So before they're just thrown into that, what do you expect? Life goes on here, so be prepared, type of thing.
Hmm. Okay. How do you handle the stress that comes when you need to juggle multiple tasks and still meet the deadlines?
Yeah, I think it's just, staying calm and being organized. I think that with sometimes biting off more than I can chew, I've become a master at that. Um, and I think it's important. I think just being able to realize, like this needs to be done first, and then I can worry about this later, understanding what's more important. But also at the end of the day, being willing to stay the extra hour to do the extra time to get it all done. I think a good example of this is recently we were trying to get all of our visas filed. And of course, one of them's coming back blank, and then you have the parents calling. So it's like, which party do you inform first? Do you inform the consulate that you need the visa filed? Do you talk to the student? Do you talk to the parent? Do I report to Brian? That's my director. So it's like, figuring out in that process, how do you navigate that? Who's the first? Who is the first person who needs to hear about this, and then kind of the trail after. So just being able to prioritize and just deal with the punches. I think study abroad in general is just a process. I think you just need to know how to navigate it. And
Hmm.
some people do that better than others. So,
Sure. Okay. What are your long-term professional goals?
yeah, I think long term, I would love to be a director of a study abroad office. I think that my passion for international education really like comes through when I like to talk about it. But I think farther than that, I would like to get my second master's degree, maybe in college counseling, so I can just work with students on more of a personal level. Student affairs for me is kind of my second step, obviously, but I can't stay in one spot too long. So I think eventually I'll be looking to do something else with that.
Oh. Okay. And what questions do you have for me?
I think my first question is I was just looking over the job description and I noticed that there's a lot of partnerships within the study abroad office there. And I'm just wondering, are all of those partnerships like exchange agreements, or do we work with a larger sort of like the big CCIS or like the big study abroad, I guess the big study abroad companies, I guess for lack of a better word. And if we offer different types of programs, so long term, short term, summer internships, and basically that would be my first question. What types
Okay.
of programs?
Hmm.
And then my second question would just be, what are the immediate goals of this position? I'm assuming since it's a large school, there's a lot of different study abroad officers, study abroad advisors, but like what is that first thing that needs to happen if I was hired for this position? Like what are the priorities from the office or those first expectations of me as a new professional there?